everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's demonstration is going to be this beautiful swatch right here. Now it is quite an easy one but really effective. Now if you are really quick and comfortable with casting off and casting on, this should be fairly easy for you to learn and do. Now there's so many ways you can take this forward. I have shown you a few variations within the demonstration, but you can experiment a lot more than I have. Now the yarns that I'm using are just the Mercerised Cotton and tape yarn, but again you can actually use any that you've got on hand. Right, so if you've got any questions, do leave it in the comments below. Right, let's get started. Okay, so I've gone ahead and casted on about 35 needles and knitted a few rows. So we are only going to be working with one technique, which is casting off. So I really do hope you're very comfortable with it. If not, do practice the technique before you try the swatch out. So all we're going to need is a single prong transfer tool. And now I'm going to start off by casting off a few needles or a few stitches in about the center of the fabric. Now we're just playing around, so it doesn't really matter in regards to your layout. Okay, so I'm just going to start randomly about here. So all I'm doing is casting off, like I said. I am taking that one stitch, moving it over to my right, and it goes behind the peg. Okay, so I tend to cast off behind the peg as opposed to forward, but I don't think it really matters for this technique or for this swatch. So you can do either or, whichever you're comfortable with, or you could do them both and see which one it is that you think works for you. Okay, and I've gone ahead and just grabbed another end of yarn, and it's the same one that we're knitting with, which is 4-ply Mercerised Cotton. And I'm just going to lay that yarn over my needle and pull it to the back. And now take that same stitch, move it over to the next stitch, lay the yarn over, pull it through to the back, and just continue. So again, it's just casting off, and I've said that about 3 times now. So I'm not fully going to go over the technique itself because it takes a while to learn, I think. So just go ahead and practice it. Okay, so I've done 2, 4, 5 needles. I'm going to do a couple more. So just moving the stitch over to the next needle, pushing the needle forward, make sure the latch is open, lay the yarn over in between the latch and the hook and pull it through the stitches. Okay, so once you've done so, go ahead and transfer it over to the next needle. Now I've casted off 2, 4, 6, 8 needles. I've got 8 empty needles, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these stitches over the pegs and lay them forward. Now if you've casted off with the stitches going behind the pegs, now by behind the pegs I mean away from you, they will be stuck or they'll be caught on these pegs, and you've got to take them out. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and take them out and move them, just leave them hanging so it's easier to form new stitches and it won't get caught. If you can hear any background noises, it's just my dog as usual, so I do apologise. Okay, so once you've done so, what you want to do is push all of these empty needles back out, including one of these needles that already has a stitch on it, plus the one on the right hand side as well. Okay, so all of those empty needles plus 2 extra needles, one on the left and one on the right, and go ahead and just E-wrap around these needles. So you're just casting them back on. So I'm doing it right to left, so I'm just obviously doing the normal E-wrap cast on, which is going over the needles clockwise. So you go in between the 2 needles and wrap the yarn around one needle, go under the next needle, wrap it around, go under the next and wrap it around. It's just your normal cast on. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and knit across 2 rows. So that's 1. And what you must remember to do is push all of these needles forward and knit 2. push these needles back out, knit one and push them back out, knit two. So once you've got about, I would say about a centimetre or just enough knitted, you can go ahead and hang your claw weights or any of the weights that you work with. Okay, so now you can see that we've done our very first haul. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do, I am going to do maybe around here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do my cast off again. So again, a random selection, but this time what I am going to do is I am going to use a different yarn to cast off with. Now again, you can just select what you've got, but I'm going to go to a slightly thicker one, which is the tape. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay that yarn over, pull it through, transfer the stitch over to the next needle, lay the yarn over, pull it through, and continue to do so. So I am going to cast off about maybe a similar amount of needles, or maybe 6 needles. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 6 needles. Okay, so I've done so, and I'm going to go ahead and push my needles forward, including one working on the left and one working on the right, and I'm going to E-wrap on these needles to cast them back on. Okay, and what I am also going to do is going to repeat that around here. So I'm going to cast off the needles there. I'm going to take the same end of yarn, I've just cut it, and I'm just going to leave the ends hanging on the back of my knit. So I'm going to cast off my 6 needles again, but again I'm not working with a layout. And push, oh sorry, so take your casting off the pegs and push the needles forward. I forgot to do it on this side, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. Okay, and remember to cast back on. Okay, so once you've done so, go ahead and knit across, push your needles forward and knit. So I'm going to do 4 rows in between each of these casting off sections, but you can of course do as many as you like. Okay, I've just got a broken needle, so I'm sort of just going to ignore that at the moment. Okay, so I've actually managed to change the needle now. Right, okay, so I've done my 4 rows in between the casting off and the next one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do another one. So I'm going to do probably another one in the center and start off by casting off, and this time I'm actually going to use my pink tape yarn and cast off as usual. Okay, so 2, 4, 5. So this time I've actually only casted off 5 needles. Okay, now we're going to do this one slightly different, just so I can show you a variation to this. Okay, now I'm going to push forward that one working needle as always, and instead of pushing all of the needles back into working position to E-wrap, I'm going to push every other needle forward. Okay, and I'm going to E-wrap on those needles, so the other needles are still on the back of the bed in non-working position. Now I'm going to go ahead and knit 1 row, and now I'm going to push those non-working needles back into working position, and I'm going to knit another row. So what that will do is it will create a little eyelet in right above that casting off section. So it's just a nice little variation, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and knit 3 more rows. And of course, remember to push your needles forward, otherwise it won't pick it up. Oh, I've got another broken needle. Okay, so I've done my 4 rows and I'm just going to pull this end through here and knot it so it doesn't come undone. Okay, right, so now I'm going to do, I think, 2 more sections around here with the pink yarn. So I'm going to do them slightly wider, cast off. Actually, this time what we will do is cast off in front of the pegs. So you will see the difference. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 more, and that's it. And I think should we cast on all of them? We'll do every other again, because there's a wider section. I think it could look quite good. So every other, and then do your E-wrap cast on as usual. And then I'm going to do 1 more down here. I've done 9 needles, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, and then every other needle and cast it back on. Okay, going to go ahead and knit 1 row. Now, what I might do actually this time round is actually a 3rd variation, is knit 2 rows and then push those needles back into working position. Oh, I think I cast it off behind the peg. I'm so used to doing that. And that is a slight variation. I think that looks quite nice actually. So as you can see, there's quite a bit you can do with this technique, and the casting off and casting on works really well for slightly bigger holes within your knit. Now you can do this technique for buttonholes as well, and also you can do so many different variations within the technique. So I've shown you about, I think I've shown you about 3 on this, but the other thing you can do is, instead of casting it back on with, you know, with the E-wrap technique, you can actually push the needles 1 at a time into working position to create larger eyelets and ladders within the holes. And you can combine it with a bit of partial knitting, and also your normal large eyelets technique. And again, you can try different casting on methods. So I've used E-wrap. You can try the crochet cast on, or you can go ahead and embroider within this. So there's so much you can do. I'm definitely going to experiment a bit more with this and see what I come up with. So I do hope you enjoy the technique, and I do hope you've been learning a lot. If you do have any questions, leave them in the comments below, or you can DM me. If you haven't already done so, do subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any videos, and also follow me on Instagram because I do post like work in progress and stuff. And lastly, do check out my website for patterns, and thank you for everyone who's already bought quite a few, and I hope you have been having fun with it. Anyway, I wish you all a good week, and I shall see you next week. Bye.